Before we begin, 150 million people. That is a conservative estimate of the number of human beings killed, directly or indirectly, by the 5 leaders in this video. That is more than the entire current population of Russia, more than twice the population of France, more than the combined population of the United Kingdom and Spain. These are not villains from a novel. They were real men. They gave speeches. They had offices and titles and state funerals. They appeared on postage stamps. Some of them appear on walls in their countries today, and they shape the world you are living in right now. The borders on your map, the alliances in your news, the wars that still haven't ended. This is not a video about monsters. Monsters are easy to dismiss. This is a video about systems. What happens when one person gets absolute power and decides to use it? 5 men, 5 regimes, the world they made. Number 5, Kim Il-sung, ruled 1948 to 1994. This image is taken from space. It is one of the most striking photographs in modern history. One peninsula, one people, one language, one shared history stretching back thousands of years, and then a border. And below that border, light, and above it, darkness. Kim Il-sung didn't just rule North Korea, he invented it. Born in 1912 under Japanese colonial rule, Kim became a guerrilla fighter and eventually rose to lead the northern half of Korea after World War II. In 1950, he launched the Korean War, a devastating conflict that killed an estimated 3 to 5 million people, attempting to reunify the peninsula under communist rule. The war ended in a stalemate that technically has never been resolved. The two Koreas are still technically at war, but the Korean War is almost a footnote in the story of Kim Il-sung's real legacy. What he built after the war ended was something the world had never quite seen before. Fun fact, Kim Il-sung created a political religion around himself and his family called Juche. He declared himself Eternal President, a title he still technically holds today, 3 decades after his death. He built a country where the state controlled every aspect of human life, where you lived, where you worked, what you read, what you were allowed to think, where 3 generations of your family could be sent to a prison camp if you said the wrong thing, where 200,000 people currently live in concentration camps by the most conservative estimates. He passed this system to his son passed it to his grandson. The dynasty continues. Kim Il-sung's legacy is still being written in the dark half of that satellite image right now. Number 4. Pol Pot ruled 1975 to 1979. Pol Pot only ruled for 4 years. In those 4 years, he killed somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of everyone who lived in Cambodia. Let that sit for a moment. Not 1/4 of his political opponents, not 1/4 of a targeted minority, 1/4 of everyone. Farmers, doctors, teachers, children, monks. He wanted to restart civilization from year 0. Wipe away cities, money, education, religion, family, return to a peasant state, purified of all Western and intellectual influence. When his Khmer Rouge seized Phnom Penh in 1975, they immediately emptied the entire city. 2 million people, the sick, the elderly, newborns, were forced into the countryside at gunpoint. Thousands died on the roads. Fun fact, wearing glasses was enough to make you a target under the Khmer Rouge. It suggested you were educated, and therefore an enemy of the revolution. Knowing a foreign language could get you killed. The killing fields, mass graves discovered after the regime fell, contained the remains of at least 1.3 million people. Skulls, bones, teeth. Pol Pot fled into the jungle when Vietnam invaded in 1979. He lived freely for another 2 decades, dying under house arrest in 1998. He was never tried by an international court. The Cambodian Genocide Tribunal, set up decades later, convicted some of his subordinates, but Pol Pot himself never faced justice. The world watched and did very little. Number 3. Mao Zedong ruled 1949 to 1976. Mao Zedong's portrait still watches over Tiananmen Square every day. He is still the founding father of the People's Republic of China. His face is still on every Chinese banknote. His embalmed body still lies in a mausoleum that millions visit, and he almost certainly caused more deaths than any other individual in human history. He promised transformation, and he delivered at a cost that staggers the imagination. In 1958, he launched the Great Leap Forward, a campaign to industrialize China overnight. Peasants were pulled from farming to smelt steel in backyard furnaces. Grain production quotas were set impossibly high. Local officials, terrified of being accused of counter-revolution, reported false numbers upward. And while the paperwork showed record harvests, people were starving. From 1959 to 1961, an estimated 30 to 46 million people died of famine. Entire villages disappeared. There are documented cases of cannibalism, and while the countryside starved, China was still exporting grain because the official numbers said there was a surplus. Fun fact: during the Great Leap Forward, Mao ordered a campaign to kill sparrows, believing they were eating too much grain. The result was an ecological catastrophe. Insects multiplied without predators, devastated crops, and worsened the famine. When he was told the scale of the disaster, Mao said, "Deaths have benefits. They can fertilize the ground." Then came the Cultural Revolution. From 1966 to 1976, Mao mobilized young people, the Red Guards, to purge intellectuals, teachers, doctors, anyone associated with the old China. Books burned, temples destroyed, universities closed. An estimated 500,000 to 2 million more died. China's economic rise today, the infrastructure, the industrial base, the literacy rate that grew under Mao, is real. So is the death toll. History, as always, refuses to be simple. Number 2. Joseph Stalin ruled 1924 to 1953. The Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin was the largest country on Earth, and in every corner of it, fear. Stalin ruled through a system of absolute terror so thorough that it didn't just silence his enemies, it silenced everyone. Because under Stalin, you didn't have to be an enemy to be arrested, you just had to be unlucky, or be denounced by a neighbor, or have the wrong surname, or be the wrong nationality. He came to power after Lenin's death in 1924. By 1929, he had outmaneuvered every rival and made himself absolute dictator. Then he began rebuilding the Soviet Union in his image through collectivization, forced industrialization, and terror. His collectivization policy forced peasants off their land and onto state farms. In Ukraine, this became the Holodomor, an engineered famine that killed somewhere between 3.5 and 7 million Ukrainians in 1932 and 1933. Many historians classify it as a genocide. Russia still disputes this classification today. Fun fact: during the Great Purge of 1936 to 1938, Stalin and Molotov once sat down and approved death sentences for 3,167 people in a single afternoon, then went to watch a movie. This is documented in the Kremlin's own records. The Great Purge, 1936 to 1938, executed somewhere between 700,000 and 1.2 million people. Senior military commanders, old Bolsheviks, artists, scientists, factory managers. Stalin even purged the NKVD, the secret police, killing the men who had carried out his earlier killings. He signed death lists by hand. When he was done, he initialed them with a red pen. Thousands of names, thousands of red initials. When Hitler invaded in 1941, the Red Army was catastrophically weakened. Stalin had just executed most of its senior officers. The first months of the war were a disaster, and yet Stalin survived, rebuilt, and eventually won the largest land war in history. His shadow is everywhere today. The Russia-Ukraine war is, in part, a legacy of how he drew borders. The North Korean system was modeled on his. The Cold War was shaped by his decisions. And in Russia, his approval rating among citizens is still disturbingly high. Number 1. Adolf Hitler ruled 1933 to 1945. There is a photograph that has become one of the most recognizable images in human history. A set of railway tracks, a gate. The tracks disappear into the gate and keep going into a camp called Auschwitz-Birkenau in occupied Poland. Over those tracks, in a single year, 1942, trains arrived carrying hundreds of thousands of people. Most were dead within hours of arrival. Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany in January 1933. He was not elected to that position. He was appointed. Within 18 months, he had dismantled every democratic institution in Germany and made himself absolute dictator. He did not hide his intentions. In Mein Kampf, written in 1925, 8 years before he came to power, he described his belief in a racial hierarchy, his hatred of Jews, his determination to acquire living space in Eastern Europe. The Western democracies read it and mostly chose not to take it seriously. September 1939. Germany invades Poland. Within 6 years, the war Hitler started had killed between 70 and 85 million people, the largest death toll of any conflict in human history. Up to 2/3 of the dead were civilians. Fun fact: the Nuremberg laws of 1935 stripped Jewish people of German citizenship and banned them from marrying non-Jewish Germans. This was 3 years before the war began. The Holocaust did not begin in 1939. It began in 1933 in peacetime with legislation, programmed of extermination. The Wannsee Conference of January 1942, where senior Nazi officials gathered in a Berlin villa to coordinate logistics, discussed the murder of 11 million European Jews. As an administrative problem to be solved, 6 million Jews were murdered. 2/3 of European Jewry, 1/3 of the entire global Jewish population. At the most efficient camp, Auschwitz-Birkenau, the Nazis killed approximately 1.1 million people.
On May the 7th, in a little schoolhouse in Reims, France, came the unconditional surrender of Germany.
Germany was defeated in 1945. Hitler died by suicide in his bunker as Soviet forces closed in. What he left behind? A continent in ruins, a generation of trauma that would shape European politics for decades. The establishment of the United Nations, the Nuremberg Principles of International Law, the State of Israel, the Cold War division of Europe, and the question, still unanswered, of how a modern, educated, civilized society allowed this to happen. What they left behind. 5 men, 5 countries, 5 different ideologies: communism, fascism, ultranationalism, agrarian revolution, hereditary authoritarianism. And yet, the same story every time. One person seizes total control. The institutions that might check that power are destroyed. The people who might object are silenced. And then the numbers begin. The borders you live within were shaped by these men. The alliances in your news exist because of them. The wars still playing out in Ukraine, in Korea, in Southeast Asia, these are their aftershocks. History is not a museum. It is not something that happened. It is the ground we are standing on right now. And the most important question history ever asks is not what these men did. It's how they were allowed to do it. Every single one of them started with a population that was afraid, government that was weak, and a narrative that made one group of people responsible for everyone else's suffering. That is not ancient history. That is a pattern. Know the pattern. Next on Chain of Command, the 5 empires that controlled the world. Before nations had nukes, they had something more powerful. Subscribe to find out what.